Hi, this is Pim from Smart Diabetics Academy, and in today's video I will tell you about how to lose weight with diabetes, and it's not just about the food. So today I'm going to give you 3 major areas to focus on that will give you the most bang for your buck. So weight loss can be a challenge for many of us, but when you're diabetic you're really at a disadvantage. Especially if you are carrying a lot of your fat around the belly area, which is the case for most type 2 diabetics. And the reason that you're carrying around this area is because you are insulin resistant. As a matter of fact, you can tell whether someone is insulin resistant by looking at where they are storing the fat. If it's in the midsection, then most likely some insulin resistance going on. And as you may know, insulin resistance is at least partially caused by too much insulin over a prolonged period of time. So it's not something that happens overnight, it's something that has been going on for quite some time. And most diabetics actually have too much insulin rather than too little. At least in the first instance, if you have had type 2 diabetes for many years, then you might be one of the people that actually have a decreased amount of insulin going on. So insulin is a storage hormone. So it will signal to your fat cells that they need to be storing fat and they need to be holding on to the fat that they have. They should not be releasing it because that's what storage hormones do. So as long as there is a lot of insulin floating around, there is no way for your fat cells to release this fat that they hold on to. Instead, they will make sure that nothing is wasted for as long as there is a lot of insulin surrounding them. So this is the biggest challenge for many diabetics, to get their fat cells to release the energy or the stored fat for energy when the bodies continuously produce a lot of excess insulin. Or if you're on insulin injections, this is going to be even harder for you, since the purpose of taking insulin, if you're type 1 diabetic, you need to take your insulin. If you're type 2, maybe you can speak to your doctor about changing it. But when you're adding insulin, what you're doing, you are literally, every time you add it, you're telling your fat cells to hold on to the fat, to store everything, to get the fat and sugar and everything into the cells. So this is something that you can work around, but everyone is different and everyone responds differently, so it's really hard for me to make general recommendations. So my best advice would be for you to go and do some experimenting or work with a coach to help you figure things out. So if you're not on insulin or any other blood glucose lowering medication, you're actually in luck. There are 3 things that I want you to consider doing on a regular basis. So number 1, I want you to eat less often. It is as simple as that. As soon as you eat, as soon as you put something in your mouth, your body will start producing and releasing insulin. And the goal is to reduce the amount of insulin as much as possible for as long as possible, to allow that fat to be released from the fat cells. And this is called, if you ever hear someone talk about fat adaptation, this is what it is, that we're used to releasing the fats so that we can use it for fuel. So you can try doing this by giving up snacking. You can do it by doing some intermittent fasting, some days longer, sometimes shorter, not having more than 3 meals per day, for example, so that in between each meal you have several hours where you let your body get back to baseline and then have a period of not releasing insulin or anything, and where you're actually sort of having a mini fast. And you can also do, when you do intermittent fasting, you can make sure that you have all your meals within, let's say, an 8-hour eating window. So you might start eating, let's say, breakfast at 8:30 in the morning, and you have your last meal at 4:30 in the afternoon. And then you don't eat again until 8:30 again next morning. So if this sounds like it's too hard to do, make it 9 or 10 hours. It doesn't really matter, but try to go shorter on some days. You don't have to do it every day, but the more you do it, the more you're gonna give your body a rest from all of that insulin that you have floating around. So number 2, cut the carbs and replace them with fat. So the last part is really important. Many people will just cut the carbs and they don't replace it with fat, and then they get really tired and they can't get fat adapted because they don't really have any fat to metabolize. They don't teach their bodies how to use the fat. So this is not really a good way of doing it because you're not going to feel great. So fat is actually a really excellent fuel source. It doesn't raise your insulin. It will increase your satiety, and it will even out your blood sugar if you have fat together with protein or carbohydrates of any amount. And it makes everything taste better. Doesn't it? Put butter on something and immediately it will taste a lot better. So please don't just go low carb with low fat. This can cause a lot of hormonal problems, and even if it helps you lose weight initially, because it will, my general recommendation is no more than 10 grams of carbs per main meal and add more fat. Okay, so this is really important, and I can't stress it enough because so many people are still afraid of adding fat to the diet. But the fat is not going to give you a heart attack, it's not gonna increase your cholesterol necessarily. Sometimes for some people it might, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. But that's a discussion for another day. So please don't be afraid of adding the fat. And number 3, so this is actually a 2-in-1. So sleep and stress relief. So we can call it rest or recreation or whatever. I know I'm going on about this and I've been talking about it in many videos, but there is a reason for that. When non-diabetics are sleep deprived, they become insulin resistant. After just one night of sleep deprivation, you can wake up and be insulin resistant. So imagine what it will do to someone who is already insulin resistant, who has type 2 diabetes. It's just going to make things even worse. And another thing with sleep is that when you sleep, the majority of the healing and repair actually occurs. But this is when it takes place. So if you don't sleep, your body will not have the time to properly heal and repair. So whether you want to heal from an infection, a trauma, a hormonal problem, it all starts with good sleep. So you can't just not sleep, eat well, and expect to get great results. It doesn't really work that way. Likewise, you can't just sleep a lot and eat crap and expect good results. You need both of them. And stress is just one of those things that cause a lot of problems. It causes issues with your hormones because it releases stress hormones from your adrenals, which will increase your blood sugar and they will keep it elevated no matter what you do with your diet. Certain medications might stop that process to some degree, but that is not really a good way of handling it. So in terms of insulin, it's a bit more complex because stress hormones generally counteract the release of insulin and its effects and make your cells even more insulin resistant. So let's just say that if you can't get your sleep and your stress under control, it's going to be harder for you to lose weight. I can promise you that. So if you start focusing on one area of your life other than food, please make it be sleep and stress relief. Obviously other things like exercise can be useful as well, but it's not nearly as important as you may think it is, especially if you're already stressed and not sleeping well. If you're already stressed and you go for a high intensity exercise at the gym, you're going to cause even more stress and just make the problem even worse. So before you go for any such hard workouts, if you like, make sure that the stress is under control. You don't want to go into the gym with your stress hormones up here already. You want to go in when you're calm and you can actually use your energy well for what it's intended to be used for. So that was pretty much it. I hope you have found this information helpful. And if you did, please give this a video a little thumbs up. and subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell icon so that you will get a notification whenever I release a new video on how to reverse type 2 diabetes naturally. And I will see you again in the next video. Bye!